Hey sports fans, we're back, and this time we're here to talk about busts. That's right, calling out athletes for not living up to the hype is a dirty job, but someone's gotta do it. Before we roll up our sleeves and dive into this list, do me a favor and click that subscribe button to our channel so you can stay up on more content like this and, of course, all things football. Number 10. To understand why Reggie Bush could really be considered a bust, you have to understand just how hyped up this man was leaving college. A can't-miss, generational talent who was to change the NFL as a running back and catching passes out of the backfield. When Bush wasn't selected number 1 overall, that came as a shock. In his rookie season, Reggie electrified the league with big play after big play and helped the Saints be regarded as one of the most dangerous teams in football. But for all of Reggie's ability, he was still averaging under 4 yards per carry and not a traditional running back. Matter of fact, Reggie only cracked the 1,000-yard mark twice in his career, and that didn't happen until after he was a Miami Dolphin and during year 6 in the league. At this point, Reggie had already been labeled a bust and doing his best to erase those doubts. Like many other busts on this list, Reggie spent the back end of his career on multiple teams playing sparingly. He finished his career in Buffalo carrying the ball 12 times for -3 yards in 13 games. About as far of a departure you can get from his Heisman glory days. Number 9. Ty Detmer's Heisman season is regarded as one of the best by a quarterback in college history. After 2 separated shoulders, his encore season wouldn't be as magical, but still very solid for Detmer. Hopes were still high for Ty, but would start fading fast. Before the NFL draft, many scouts and coaches questioned Detmer's size and whether or not he was a prototypical NFL quarterback. Detmer would end up sliding all the way to the 9th round, back when they had 9 rounds, and be selected by the Green Bay Packers. He'd appear in only 7 games serving as a backup to Brett Favre. He'd spend the rest of his career as a journeyman getting spot starts but proving to be nowhere near the quarterback he was in college. In total, Detmer started 25 games before leaving the NFL without bothering to officially retire. Number 8. You may never find a more polarizing Heisman bust than Tim Tebow. Some, like John Gruden and Tony Dungy, thought he was going to revolutionize the league and was a consensus top 10 pick in the NFL draft, while analyst Mel Kiper Jr. wasn't drinking the Tim Tebow is special Kool-Aid and criticized his ability as a passer and questioned whether or not he could ever develop into a capable quarterback. Tebow was chosen by the Broncos in the first round with the 25th pick. After playing sparingly in his rookie season, Tebow would get his chance after a rocky start by Denver, and Tebow didn't disappoint in the win column, helping Denver to the playoffs and even a playoff win, but Tebow's lack of passing chops always left room for doubt in his ability to be the franchise quarterback. Tebow was viewed as more of a gimmick guy who could win with his legs, but who could be beaten whenever the Broncos were put into passing situations. A tough stigma to have when you're supposed to be the franchise, and one that led the Broncos to acquire Peyton Manning, which ended Tebow's time in Denver. Tebow would throw 8 passes with the Jets before stints with the Patriots and the Eagles. After never really developing into any sort of capable passer, Tebow finished his NFL career with just over 2,400 passing yards. Number 7. Vince Young has so many BCS and University of Texas records, his Wikipedia has its own accomplishments section. Phenomenal as they come in college, it was hard to fathom that he would ever be labeled a bust. Early in his pro career, Vince Young delivered on the promise he left college with by winning Offensive Rookie of the Year and being selected to the Pro Bowl. Young also broke the rookie QB rushing record that had stood for almost 40 years and finished off the year with 3 straight fourth-quarter comebacks. Accolades aside, while Young was leading the Titans to victory, there was still a little problem. He was very average as a passer. Matter of fact, Vince Young finished 31 out of 32 in quarterback ratings that year, and his completion percentage just over 50%. After being slightly better the following year, leading the Titans to the playoffs, Young would fall short in his lone playoff game and throw for only 138 yards and a costly interception. Interceptions became a thing for Young, who threw almost twice as many as touchdowns. An injury early in the 2008 season would let Jeff Fisher bring in Kerry Collins, and Collins ended up leading the team to its best record in almost a decade. The next season, Coach Fisher announced that Kerry would remain the starter, and if Vince Young wanted his job back, he'd have to earn it. Kerry would go 0-6, and Young would get his job back and win 8 of the next 10 and cause a quarterback controversy in Tennessee, with Coach Fisher insisting Kerry Collins was his guy. Young would get injured again in the following season and then have a locker room altercation with Jeff Fisher that would effectively end his time in Tennessee. After bouncing around the league a bit for the next 4 years, in 2017, Young was to play for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, but after tearing his hamstring during training, he was waived. Number 6. Robert Griffin III was a cheat code in college. His video game-like numbers and electric playing style helped him become the first Baylor player to win the Heisman Trophy and would end up being selected 2nd overall by the Washington Redskins in the 2012 NFL Draft. After starting the season 3-6, RG3 would help the Redskins win their next 7 games, missing 1 game in that span due to a knee injury, and reach the postseason. He would re-injure his knee in a wild card loss to the Seahawks and never really be the same throughout his career. As a matter of fact, his rookie season would end up being his best season as a pro, as the quarterback would only start in 13 games the following year, then 7 games, before missing the entire 2015 season. After a forgettable year with the Cleveland Browns, the QB would end up with the Baltimore Ravens, where he served as a backup to an even more electrifying player, Lamar Jackson. Number 5. Jamarcus Russell didn't get a lot of starts in college, but when the 6'6" quarterback took the field, opposing defenses and defensive coordinators took notice. After his stellar final year at LSU, Russell was drafted with the number 1 overall pick and cast to save a franchise that had been drowning in futility. Russell came in and never even came close to the promise he left college with. Chosen over future Hall of Famers Adrian Peterson and Calvin Johnson, Jamarcus Russell was selected by former Raiders owner and noted Maverick Al Davis because of his cannon for an arm, and because some scouts said that Russell's pro workouts were some of the best they'd ever seen. It was clear early in Russell's Raiders career that he lacked the tools to develop mentally to the pro game. His decision-making and pocket awareness doomed him. The best workout scouts had ever seen seemed quickly to fall off as soon as Russell took the actual football field. Russell would never do anything to prove the doubters wrong after never adjusting to NFL play and not leading the Raiders to 7 wins in his 3 years. The Raiders released Russell and nobody ever signed him. Russell had 2 failed NFL comeback attempts, and after writing letters to all the teams in the league asking for tryouts and letting them know he'd play for free, Russell was never given another shot. Number 4. Troy Smith hoisted the Heisman in 2006 and saw his stock plummet after getting ripped apart by Florida 41-14 in the BCS title game. At 5'11", Smith already had scouts saying that he may be too small to play at the position and could have trouble properly developing into a franchise quarterback. Smith would be selected by day 2 by the Baltimore Ravens. He played sparingly during his rookie year but showed promise towards the end of the season, supplanting Kyle Bowler as the starter and ending the Ravens' 9-game skid. The following year, Smith would be diagnosed with a rare disease called Lemire syndrome and end up relinquishing starting QB duties to Joe Flacco, thus beginning the Flacco era. Smith would move on to San Francisco, and after some mediocre play and success highlighted by winning Offensive Player of the Week, the Niners wouldn't re-sign Smith, and he ended up taking his talents to the UFL, back to the NFL, and then to the CFL before calling it a career. Number 3. After a couple of injury-shortened seasons, Jason White came out of seemingly nowhere to win the Heisman in 2003, and would follow that up by finishing 3rd in 2004. After college, White wasn't selected in the NFL draft and became the first Heisman ever to be unsuccessful in an attempt to play in the NFL. The injuries that shortened his college career loomed after he declared himself eligible for the NFL draft and would eventually get signed as an undrafted free agent with the Tennessee Titans, but would never play, citing weak knees. Number 2. If Matt Leinart had come out of college and entered the NFL draft following his Heisman season in 2004, he'd likely been the first pick. Leinart decided to stick around for another year and ended up being drafted 10th by the Arizona Cardinals. The problem, the Cardinals had Kurt Warner, who wasn't going quietly into the night and calling it a career anytime soon. Leinart got a few starts during his rookie season and ended up being named the starter to begin the 2007 season, but would be put on injured reserve after a few starts, and Warner would be handed the team back. The following season, Leinart would be replaced again after a poor performance, and Warner would end up taking the team to the Super Bowl and effectively end the quarterback debate. Leinart would get his job back after Warner retired, however, he would lose the job in training camp to Derek Anderson and shortly after was cut by the Cardinals. He'd spend the next 3 years as a backup, ending one of the most head-scratching post-Heisman careers. Number 1. The Johnny Manziel coming out party was official after his Aggies beat the number 1 ranked Alabama in a true David versus Goliath matchup. The world got its first real taste of Johnny football, and Manziel would take home the Heisman Trophy that year and be the first freshman ever to do so. After finishing 5th in voting the following season, Manziel would take his talents to the NFL. Known for being a partier with a polarizing reputation, Manziel slid in the draft to the Cleveland Browns at the 22nd pick. During his slide, Manziel reportedly texted the Browns quarterback coach that he wanted to wreck the league, and the Browns ended up trading up for him. Manziel did anything but wreck the league during his rookie season after throwing no touchdowns in his 2 starts. His second season would be a ride almost as rocky as the first. He would come in for an injured Josh McCown twice and lose in relief. He would eventually be named the starter, but then got demoted to the 3rd string after videos of him partying surfaced during the team's bye week. After that, it was pretty much bye-bye Johnny after he was released by the Browns the next season before resurfacing twice in the Canadian Football League with the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Montreal Alouettes. After the Alouettes had enough of Johnny and his antics, he would find himself in the Alliance of American Football and serve as a backup before the league suspended football operations. That's our list. 10 busts who probably expected to have their busts in Canton, but instead somehow found their way to our bust list. Let us know what you think about the list by dropping us a comment below. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and hit that subscribe button to receive more of our content and lists like this. Until next time.